Hello and welcome to Blah Blah Comics, Blah Blah Curse Words. I'm Derek.
I'm Colby.
And this time we are talking the best of comics 2014 this sometimes.
Yes, and I will say, before diving in, because it's been such a crazy year, I had so much trouble remembering what came out this year and what came out last year, or I don't know why, but it was such a mess for me thinking of everything this year.
That's all right. I've actually got a couple things on my list that started within the last couple of years, but I thought were so strong this year, or ended so strong this year, that they still deserve mentioning. So,
well, this was kind of the year of also a lot of stories that had been written that were written a long time ago finally being released.
Right. Actually, that's one thing that I have on my list is just as a thing in general. There were so many things this year that finally saw print with the blessing of their creators that for years had been, completely in limbo. We saw the re-release of Miracle Man. We saw the re-release of Flex Mentallo. The re-release of Zenith started at the end of this year.
The release of Multiversity.
The release of Multiversity, absolutely.
Sandman Overture.
Sandman Overture, indeed, yeah, and so many of these, even Alan Moore signing off on Miracle Man being re-released. Admittedly, that was pretty much due to all the money going to Bleach.
Well, as of the recording of this, and probably released next Wednesday, the Miracle Man, all the Morrison unreleased story and a new story. So the Morrison story that we know of has been in existence for like 30 years now and not published.
Right. So yeah, it was a surprising year for books that have kind of been out there forever that have been kind of entered the cultural lexicon of the mystery of, are these as good as their reputation? And so far a lot of them have been. But we finally got to see them in their proper way. So that was super exciting.
So I know we talked about it before the podcast, but for the people knowing, we're going to do this a little bit different, where instead of necessarily granting award style, the best this, we'll probably just talk about individual categories and talk about what we liked this year in general.
Yeah, just things we loved, things that thrilled us, things that made 2014 special. Yeah,
because I wrote down categories and wrote down what I thought would be contestants in each category. I could narrow it down to 3 or 4, but I could not narrow it down to 1.
Right.
We just want to dive. What were some of the series you loved this year in general?
Just in general, at the top of my list, it's one that I've mentioned on so many podcasts, and I'm going to mention it again. The best thing this year for me, at least superhero-wise, was Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel. Like I said, this week I got to finally catch up and read the first volume, and a lot of almost completely caught up. And it's such a fun read.
And it's also one of the highest-selling comics in the digital marketplace, which I thought was a really wonderful bitch slap to all the naysayers who still believe that comics starring non-traditional superheroes won't find an audience, and also that a thriving digital marketplace is some kind of threat to the industry. It's in fact boosted comic sales. So
that's something I want to talk about. There were so many surprise hits this year, series-wise, series I didn't even know about or didn't think I would like that I ended up loving. And the top of my list, surprisingly enough, were Batman Eternal and Catwoman.
Yeah, definitely.
And even to go off that, I knew I'd love Gotham Academy, but once again, being the very odd niche comic that they thought wouldn't be successful, and seeing some pretty decent success, and Gotham by Midnight on top of that.
Right. The Bat Office in particular took some real risks this year, and I think those risks really paid off. Despite some of the controversy about the most recent issue, I still have a lot of faith in the new Batgirl and their creative team doing something special. And as you mentioned, Batman Eternal has been pretty spectacular.
I know. You can probably go back to some of our early podcasts and hear us talk and kind of bitch about Eternal, how we did not want this series to come out. We thought it was going to be dumb, a weekly Bat series, and it ended up being, up until recently, my favorite Batman series this year.
It's a strong contender. It's had, for a weekly book, it's had more good issues than bad.
Yeah.
It's also definitely the best weekly book of the year. Though, I have to say that a book that made my list purely for how much batshit fun it's become was Future's End.
See, and that's, for me, I was almost reverse of you, where I really liked the first, or the Free Comic Book Day issue and the first few issues, and then I kind of just dropped off and have not picked up issues since, like, issue 3.
Yeah, it definitely became less Terry McGinnis Batman Beyond focused and started focusing in on some weirder characters. And I'd say the first probably 10 issues or so are pretty weak and kind of ham-fisted in their ideas of what they wanted to talk about with the ideas of heroism and reactions to technology in our world. But I don't know, as the series has gone on, it's just become a lot of crazy fun. I know you're pretty far behind, but the idea that in the Brother Eye future, the Joker has been fused to Batman. And they're like this weird Manny Faces turnaround thing of personalities that are completely controlled by Brother Eye and Mr. Terrific. It's crazy. It's nuts, but it is a lot of fun. And the series is actually holding itself together surprisingly well. They managed to more or less tie up the Cadmus story. They've done a lot of stuff with the Green Arrow angle that was introduced. They've done something interesting with Firestorm, which I honestly did not think was possible. So yeah, it's become a book that I look forward to reading every week in a way that I never expected it to. I can't claim that it is good, but it is certainly enjoyable.
See, that's good. As always, like I said, that's my key component. If I can have fun with the comic, it's fine. I don't care anymore. That's fun.
Exactly.
And see, as far as since we're on series, to get into like some of the heavy hitters, I know me personally, I've raved about all year, but Stray Bullets, since its relaunch, or not really relaunch, but comeback as Stray Bullets Killers, has been each issue incredible. And then, of course, stuff like Multiversity, each issue, once again, has just blown away even what I thought it would be.
Right, and I've got to put on a little carry-on to that. Annihilator, which I know you haven't had a chance to read, and I'm admittedly behind on.
I've heard it.
For all my complaints about the first issue, Morrison is really back on top.
Yeah, I've heard
this game of this year.
The past 3 issues of Annihilator that I've seen, every critical review has been pretty positive, like really, really good. And even though it's got the most sporadic release ever, Sandman did, I think, have 2, maybe 3 issues come out this year.
Yeah, we can say for sure Overture number 4 was out this year.
Yes.
I want to say 3 came out this year.
I know for sure 3 and 4. I don't know. I know not 1, and I have no clue about 2.
I think 2 came out in February.
Maybe.
I think we had the October release in 2013 of issue 1 because it was kind of a Halloween-y release. 2 was supposed to come out in December. It got delayed. So, yeah, I want to say 2, 3, and 4 all saw print this year. And you're absolutely right. For a book that's being so sporadically released, it is such a beautiful book. And Gaiman is bringing it. He's actually cares about the series and the characters.
For everything we see about prequels and stuff, it's one of the few prequel-esque things that you can tell not only it's really good in its own right, not only doesn't hurt the original material, but actually adds to the original material in a fun, positive way.
Right, and in a way that's definitely impactful.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've had this discussion before. Would we hand Sandman Overture to someone who hasn't read Sandman? And I would say at this point, 4 issues in, definitively no. There's too many things that play off of things that have already been established. Especially, there was a mention, I want to say, of Rao in issue 3. I want to say that played off a meeting that happened in the Endless Nights collection.
Yeah. That
really is something that needs to have been read before you read Overture. Overture is definitely something rewarding the longtime fan and not the new Sandman reader. And there's nothing wrong with that because even though it's set up as a prequel, it is definitely something that adds to and enriches the Sandman experience.
It is something, that when the final trade comes out, when it's done and over, you can proudly put next to all the Sandman volumes, all the Death stuff, Endless Nights, Dream Hunters, all of it, and proudly be there instead of shamefully.
Right, exactly.
Well, speaking of Sandman stuff, we've got to talk Supreme Blue Rose, which shocked both of us this year.
Yeah, Warren Ellis, again, is a creator who's kind of feels like he's been treading water the last couple of years, but really delivered a 1-2 punch with both Supreme Blue Rose and Trees.
Mm-hmm.
You talk a little bit about Supreme Blue Rose.
Supreme Blue Rose is such a fun, crazy, weird trip that is Warren Ellis at his craziest best. It takes elements of a lot of Sandman-esque stories, a lot of Morrison-esque stories, and throws them into the Supreme world. So much so that, as I admitted to last podcast, I didn't even realize for a long time it was a Supreme, as in the Supreme superhero book. I just thought it was a Warren Ellis book.
Right.
And it does that so well, where it just takes you on a ride that you have no clue where you're going or how it's going to end up connecting to everything, but it does in the funnest ways possible.
Right. I think he brings an element of that to Trees as well.
Yeah.
Trees just saw issue 7 come out, and some of the mysteries regarding the alien invasion, which is the Pillars, are starting to come to light. But really, the focus of the book is on the characters and how their lives are warped by this unknowable alien presence. That it really shows Ellis. And as much as I hate to say this because it sounds condescending, he's trying again. He wants to tell a story again in a way that I don't feel like we've seen from say, Fell or Dr. Sleepless, both of which I loved. They were great, fun series, but they felt like Warren Ellis, again, this sounds condescending and it's not meant to be, but they sounded like Warren Ellis writing for the paycheck.
No,
and Trees and Supreme both feel like him giving a shit.
Yeah, both of these series, I only read the first few issues of Trees, and I will eventually get caught back up, but from what I read of that and from Supreme Blue Rose, both of them, yeah, it's a hungry writer, someone who wants to prove something again.
Right. While we're talking about surprises, I want to kind of go off on a tangent here. Another Image book, Wicked into the Divine, which I've said several times, gives me a Sandman-esque vibe, and I realized finally what I meant when I said that. Wicked in the Divine spends so much time with these unknowable deities, these characters that have grown beyond human existence, but the characterization around them and the characters around them feel real and ground a book that should be almost obtuse in its presentation into something that we can feel.
See that? Yeah, that would be the entire reason why. Because I agree with you the whole time on why that it had a very Sandman vibe, and that's hitting the nail on the head, because it definitely does. That is the overarching back of it all. Is you have basically the same, not the Endless, but characters very similar to the Endless.
Right.
We're on Image right now. Image has continued their streak of just making awesome books. Witches this year has only 3 issues in, but still a very solid and surprising series.
See, I left Witches off of my list, but I knew you were going to put it on yours. And even though I left it off my list, I've still been very, very impressed by the 3 issues that have come out.
It's just one thing with character work. It's this huge, weird, large story, but the character work is so solid that it grounds it in a realistic plane.
Right, especially the dad. I empathize so hard with Sale's father.
And it is so. Issue 3 just came out. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm a little behind.
It's very good.
Good. I'm a little behind. Something with Catwoman, because Catwoman had 37, and then the annual come out, so I'm behind on that too. But I've heard good things, so I'll get to that eventually. Even though I know we're talking about both of those, I had to talk about them, even though I'm still behind.
Well, a book I'm super digging that I still don't think you've had a chance to pick up yet has been Southern Bastards.
I have. Well, at least I picked up some of it.
Right.
During the Hastings here and there had buy 4 for $1 each on comics, something like that. And I picked up a few, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's just Jason Aaron knows the South, and more than that, he understands the South.
Yeah,
and the two of us being Southern boys, for better or worse, as much as we might try to escape it, you and I are both very much of that culture, and can really. For better or worse, we can spot that culture.
Yeah, it's very much got the how I like to put it, at least the first few issues have a very dark Friday Night Lights feel.
Right, exactly.
Which is awesome.
Being from Texas,
yes,
that means the world.
Yeah.
To have somebody not glorify the Friday Night Lights ideal.
Yeah, exactly. Not having the coaches and these people, instead of becoming these Pope-like heroes, being kind of demonized as the villains. Or not so much villains, but being very muddied gray characters. Which, it's fun to see, because for whatever reason, especially being from here, you never see that.
Yeah.
They are left on a pedestal, and that in the Friday Night Lights, the football culture, all that is, for lack of most things, not questioned.
Right.
Well, I wanted to jump into just single issues I loved, because there weren't a ton like single issues I could think of, but there were two this year that the Gerard Way Spider-Verse issue, and
of course,
yeah, the Vertigo Yellow Quarterly. Once again, Gerard Way was involved, but that thing overall, every story in it was so solid and so good, and it just shocked me because I went in buying it just because Gerard Way and Gabriel Baugh had work in it, and ended up loving every single story in it.
Yeah, I wish I'd gotten to pick that up, and I admittedly didn't, but I've heard nothing but really strong things about that.
So good.
For a single issue, I would actually like to point out, and I know this has ended up on a lot of people's best of lists, Sex Criminals number 6 was actually a look at the main guy character, John, and his relationship with his depression. And we all know that Fractions had some very personal problems that he's been very public about dealing with, and whether it was a combination of his own personal experience or research, but it was a very true and honest depiction of dealing with depression and possibly manic depression in fiction in a way that I was really surprised and impressed by. It's definitely a highlight of a series that I've been digging and talked about quite a bit, and that was a highlight of it. Also, Saga number 24, the most recent issue. I don't know if I've talked about it lately, but the most recent arc of Saga has been kind of meh.
Yeah,
it really seemed to be going in a certain direction, and Vaughn. He took a turn. He pulled it off.
Nice.
He swerved it in a way that I legitimately hadn't expected. And so Saga as a book continues to be on my best of list because I adore the book. And then the most recent issue really pulled it back on course in a way that I kind of didn't expect.
I'm so happy because, I mean, as you know, especially the first 12 issues of Saga were so great. I loved each one, and around I think issue 15, I want to say, it started kind of not treading water, but going in a direction that I didn't love.
Right. Well, the whole Alana gets hooked on drugs, Marco might be falling for another woman. It felt so soap opera and so done to death.
Yeah, it did. It felt like in this story filled with really unique ideas and characters and individuals that did just feel like this old cliched story that was popping up that, yes, the characters grew from it, and yes, it had purpose, but it wasn't why I was going to Saga.
Right, exactly. And there was at least one podcast I listened to that I kind of had to agree with the idea that you kind of felt Vaughn starting to shake under the pressure a little bit. Yeah. You could feel the flop sweat on the page. Yeah, knowing that this book had gotten so big and was meant so much to so many people, he was starting to, not necessarily crumple or anything under the strain, but that he was starting to feel the strain, and the strain was starting to be felt on the page. And I really feel like number 24 in particular pulled out of that particular dive and started making something good, bringing something good again.
And see, that's we haven't talked about the series at all, actually, I don't think. I don't know if you've kept up or read it all, but I know Rat Queens had a similar trajectory.
Right, yeah.
Where Rat Queens, the first few issues, or first I can't remember what issue they're on, but the first 6 issues were so solid, and you could tell Curtis J. Weeby, however you say his last name, had, much like Brian K. Vaughan, he knew he had something personal that he wanted to write and wanted to tell, and it was really good. But it got so popular that you can tell in their writing when they realized, oh my gosh, this means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah. Exactly. And then also, Rat Queens had the unfortunate artist issue.
Yeah.
Where their artist ended up having some domestic problems that ended up getting him fired off the book.
Yeah. And I think that and everything there, I feel so sorry because that book had such a quick trajectory that it was just on this train that could not be stopped, where it was looking like the next saga, the next big thing, and because of all that, it just kind of is now floundering. Not floundering, but it's now in this point of who knows.
Right. It's got some issues that it needs to work out.
Because I want Rat Queens to come back as Curtis J. Webby. I've loved a lot of what he's done, and I think his writing style is really cool. And I want more success for him because he's had a cool little uprise, and I just want to see him be able to do more. So I don't like seeing him bogged down by all these problems. But we'll see where that goes.
Indeed.
You know, I was looking at my shelf and I kind of wrote some down. I realized this year on like original graphic novels, I've read a lot, but there weren't a lot released this year that I loved.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up any. I'm kind of ashamed to say I still haven't read Seconds.
See, I was about to say the only two that I've picked up that I had with this year that I loved were Seconds and Infinity Revelation.
Right. Yeah, actually, I totally forgot about Infinity Revelation, but I'm totally 100% down for that. Anytime Jim Starlin does Thanos, I am down.
And so both of those I really loved, but instead of that, there's not a ton. We've talked about both those in past podcasts. They're both really good.
Right.
Really unique angles on Second, especially is a very unique story, or it's a kind of old, actually kind of tried and true story, but done in a unique haze, basically.
Right.
And Infinity Revelation, for any, like you said, Starlin Thanos fan, it is really fun, and it's definitely of his other works.
Yeah, it's not Infinity Gauntlet level, but it's certainly better than, say, Infinity Crusade.
Yeah.
And it's a creator coming back to a character that you can tell he has a lot of affinity for and a lot of love for.
So I wanted to talk to you about this too. We were talking about Rat Queens and how that what happened with domestic issues and how that was a very surprising moment there. I want to talk about legit surprising moments in comics that weren't so sad. There were two this year that actually caught me off guard, both by DC actually, and it would be the Joker reveal in Batman 35, I believe.
Yes.
And the Anti-Monitor reveal in Forever Evil.
Yeah, both of those were really shocking and genuinely unexpected.
Yeah, Forever Evil, we talked about it before. Event-wise, it wasn't an incredible event, but it actually may have been probably, in my opinion, the best event of the past few years because
disagree. I have an event that tops Forever Evil, and it is a surprise. But I will let you.
Okay.
You finish yours, and then I will rebut.
It's the only, so far at least, it's the only event that I can think of that, off the top of my head, of the past few years that consistently every issue was not horrible, and every issue actually added to the story. And it was actually villains versus heroes instead of heroes versus heroes. And the entire time we're led to believe that Darkseid, or that someone else is behind this, and it looks like Darkseid. And the final page turn of who's the big reveal, where everyone's expecting Darkseid, it's Anti-Monitor from out of nowhere.
Right. And I will say Forever Evil is one of the most successful unfortunate event crossovers, but I have to give best crossover to one I actually just picked up, which was Armor Hunters over in the Valiant universe.
We haven't talked a lot of Valiant. You know what came out this year, and it was a great issue, and a writer I love, Matt Kent, Rye.
Yes.
And that series has been awesome. I haven't kept up in the past few, but the first few issues were freaking awesome. I just didn't keep up because of money reasons, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I just picked up Armor Hunters again as part of that Hastings sale recently. I picked up all the back issues, and man, Armor Hunters 4 issues plus an Aftermath issue. The only quote-unquote necessary tie-in was Exo Manowar, which even then it was kind of the Mighty Avengers to Armor Hunters Secret Invasion, in that it gave the backstory to the Armor Hunters, but it had 2 break-off miniseries. It had Armor Hunters Harbinger and Armor Hunters Bloodshot, which did exactly what a break-off miniseries should do. They dealt with extraneous threats that happened around the central event. The Armor Hunters story was mostly Exo-related, but it did pull in the rest of the Valiant universe in an interesting and fun way. It was short, it was sweet, it was entertaining. It didn't derail any book's story that was currently going.
Nice.
As it is my crossover of the year.
You know, I will grant you that indeed, because I haven't had a chance to read it, but Valiant, you know what? Since its launch, it really has not stumbled yet to a big degree. Where pretty much every series I've had has been pretty solid.
I recently read through most of my Valiant Humble bundle that I picked up a few months ago, and yeah, that company has just been churning out quality superhero comics in a cohesive universe in a way that you used to expect from Marvel and DC and just can't really expect anymore.
You know, this is the best of, so I won't focus on too much, but I've noticed we're talking about all this stuff, and sadly, we both love Marvel. We haven't had a ton to say on the best of about Marvel outside of Miss Marvel.
That's true. Okay. I will say that Bendis' Uncanny X-Men has been the best X-Men has been in at least 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, he's managed to, especially when he first came on the book, he didn't really have the voices down of a lot of the characters, especially Cyclops and Magneto, which were two characters he was focusing on. And this most recent issue, which had a tremendous cliffhanger that I am not going to spoil because two cliffhangers actually, both of which were deeply seated early in his run, but there's a long exchange between Magneto and Cyclops that, while hostile, also shows the deep level of respect both men have for each other, and really catches the tone and tenor of what these two guys should sound like when they're talking to each other. It's just an incredibly strong issue in what has turned out to be an incredibly strong run of X-Men. So any lapsed X-Men fans, Uncanny X-Men has been a tremendous book. It's came out of a shitty crossover. Its initial few issues, the initial few issues of All New, of which it kind of spun out of, were kind of floundered and were not great. Bendis really took a bit to fall into the niche he needed to be in, but it has grown into one of the strongest superhero titles Marvel's putting out. So to be positive for Marvel, Uncanny X-Men has been just amazing.
Nice. And I will say, like, I believe only one issue has come out, but I really enjoyed the Angela issue.
That was a pretty solid issue. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's a cool direction for that character. I think their biggest problem this year was just they got so bogged down in events that it was hard to focus on one series or not because of that.
Right.
Daredevil still every issue kicking pretty awesome.
Yes, that was another one that you're right, should absolutely be mentioned. Wade and Sam Nee's Daredevil, every single issue just delivers the goods. We've yet to get a truly bad issue of Wade and Sam Nee Daredevil, and I am genuinely sorry to hear that they are ending their run together sometime in 2015.
And, positive Marvel. Hickman's Avengers, the New Avengers.
I've been super digging it. Yeah. I'm still on it. I'm still on the ride. I really like where Time Runs Out is going. I admit I will probably wait until the hardcover comes out, but I'm actually kind of excited about Secret Wars. Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Spider-Verse has kicked so much crazy ass. I've never read an event where every single issue contributed something positive to the overall story, and B, with one exception, was a very good read. That one exception being Spider-Woman #1 was kind of terrible. However, Spider-Woman #2 was 100% better.
That's what I've heard. So we will say that Marvel, they do have great stuff. They just need to cool down with the events a little bit. They definitely won't, but just knowing...
Yeah, if they would just pull it back just a touch, they would be back on top. They would be kings of their domain again.
It's very odd to say that if you guys just do one event a year...
Yeah.
Instead of one event...
Go back to your summer events. Yeah. That's all we want.
I never thought that I would remember the good old days of when we just had one event a year, like Avengers versus X-Men or something. Mm-hmm. Now we're to
remember, Avengers vs. X-Men was out at the same time as Schism and Spider Island. And I want to say Shadowland. Now, you're talking about going all the way back to the heady days of 2008 when we had Secret Invasion. And that was it.
Well, okay, I will say, we're at such a weird point now where we're having multiple, huge crossovers, not just comic ones, but, entire run crossovers at the same time or back-to-back.
Right.
So... whatever may be the case, we love you, Marvel. Just cool it down with everything.
We want you to be better.
Yes.
We criticize because we love.
Yes. And I think, we talked about Witches earlier, and even though it's only half of this, there's a comic team that they get a ton of credit, but one that I cannot believe the amount of work they are turning out, and I don't believe there's been delay. The Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo team
on Batman, especially even though I know we haven't loved Zero Year, although I've started reading it in trade, and it's like you said, way better in trade.
If you read it in a oneer, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah, and that team, especially this year, and especially the latest issues of Batman, has just. I'm shocked at the amount of work they are turning out, and they're workhorses right now.
Yeah, Capullo's killing it.
Yeah, like
Capullo is just straight up killing it.
for
every
someone,
issue.
his art, he gets he does get a ton of credit, but at the same time, someone who is so known for coming out of Spawn and coming out of this very dark stuff and going to Batman, which you would think he would take that same skill set, like this dark, gritty Batman. His Batman is actually way funner than people give him credit for.
His Batman is crazy colorful.
It is. I know that goes with color and inker and everybody, but at the same time, his Batman is just drawn to be that Batman, not drawn to be the super dark one.
Right. Yeah, he definitely has a unique style and a unique take that really makes that book his own. Like, I mean, the biggest comparison you can compare it to is, and I just used that word twice, and I'm looking at it on my shelf now, is Patrick Gleason over on Batman and Robin, which is a great book, and Gleason also has this singular talent to take something right up to the edge of ridiculous and keep it at sublime, but he toes the line a lot closer than Capullo does, and his Batman in particular has a very Doug Mankey look to it, a very standard superhero look to it. It's his villains and his backgrounds and his occasional action sequences is where he really pushes the envelope. Whereas Capullo, like you say, every single panel, it's something, like going back a couple of years, going back to Court of Owls, that one issue that opened on a giant nipple because it was the undead zombie looking out over his own chest, and the foreground is a giant frozen nipple. I mean, I'm 90% sure Snyder did not script that angle, but that was the angle Capullo chose to present the story, and holy shit, it worked.
From everything I've heard from their angle, those two, when they started out, Scott Snyder was the typewriter that would script out every little thing, and Capullo hated that. And from what I've heard to this point, it's so... Capullo has so much freedom, it's not even funny on what he does, but they work so well with each other at this point that it doesn't matter because they know where the story's going. They'll add stuff if they have to. And it really tells because I've been rereading, because I got the Joker mask set for Christmas.
Nice.
And I started rereading Death of the Family, and once again, in trade, Jesse Batman without all the tie-ins, it reads very clearly and very well.
Yeah, I need to go back and reread that one because I think by issue 3, my expectations for the book were so high that I couldn't help but be disappointed.
But one thing you notice in that book, and he's talked about in interviews, something Capullo does where Joker's face, every issue is slowly decaying more and more and more, and when you read it back to back, you really just see this character start decaying in front of your eyes, and it's so fun in the sickest way.
Yeah, I need to give that another shot, especially having reread Zero Year.
Those, as far as the team goes, by far they are the most consistent team in this day and age to continue work on the same project together. Next out, you said, I just slipped my mind, Wade and Sammy?
Right.
Outside of people like that who are killing it constantly.
Right. Yeah, at this point, if Wade and Sammy are on a book, I am buying that book. Yeah. I bought a Rocketeer 4-issue miniseries that ended up being really good, but would not have caught my eye had the creative team not been Mark Waid and Chris Samney.
No. And that's perfectly fine. Well, we were talking about that. Just to go ahead and do it, like we said, I think Image has definitely killed this year, and I think the DC coming off of 2013, which I think was a weaker year for them at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think
2013, you really felt a lot of the backlash from the New 52 starting to set in, and they started trying to change the titles or overmanage the titles. And 2014, they really backed off. And like I said, especially you can see that in the Bad Office, and
even a lot in the Green Lantern.
Right.
As far as everything, I know we have a lot of cancellations or possible reincarnations, it looks like, or something happening in 2015 with those titles. But as for right now, they're going crazy with whatever they want to, it seems like.
Right. It really feels like Venditti has been given pretty much carte blanche for the Green Lantern universe. And there's definitely some editorial stuff in there. I really think that the New Gods stuff of the most recent crossover was probably editorially mandated, but Venditti's been pulling it off issue after issue in a way that I never really felt him on Exo.
Did you see? Have you seen all the covers and variant covers, the Jack Kirby covers for Green Lantern Godhead throughout December and I think some of January?
No, I saw them in the back of one of the more recent issues of a DC book, but I did not see the actual covers on the shelf.
I want to get those actual covers, but I'm the same way. I haven't seen them in the stores, but I know they exist.
Yes, and they were very cool. Speaking of, the Darwin Cook covers for this month have been really spectacular.
That's another one where I have nowhere I've been has had them except for a few places, and they either overcharge them or go very quickly.
See, I was very happy that Star Comics, my comic store here in Lubbock, since they are orderable comics, there's no reason to charge more than cover price for them. So I was just able to get the books I wanted at cover price.
I won't name comic stores here, but there was one that overcharged me like $6.99 or something, and I was like, I don't want that. That, like you said, that is only worth $2.99 or $3.99. And the other store that is much better and nicer, they sold out very quickly of what they did have.
Right.
If you're in Amarillo, you probably know which ones I'm talking about. I don't really mean it because it's the best of, but that's yeah.
Okay, so completely off the rails of what we've been talking about, I finally got to pick up Copra. The most recent trade came out within the last couple of weeks called Copra Round 1. Collected the first 6 issues of Michel Fief's Copra. Do you know anything about Copra?
Not at all.
Okay, Copra is a comic book by a guy named Michel Fief. He's currently writing all new Ultimates for Marvel, and the reason he got the gig is because he created Copra. Copra is a book that he wrote, drew, inked, colored, lettered, edited, and created and shipped out of his home on Bergen Street. That's the reason the press is called Bergen Street Press. He did all of that for 12 issues, 1 issue a month, for a year.
This is sounding very Crow-esque.
Yes, and he managed to keep an entire schedule up. It's basically a Suicide Squad riff, except in the second issue, Doctor Strange and Clea show up, and in the third issue, the Punisher shows up, and then so does Shade the Changing Man, the old 1960s or 1970s Steve Ditko Shade, and the Negative Zone. And it's basically a love letter to Action Comics in a way that really, really captures the fun and energy of comic books that I just adored. And it's making a lot of best of lists this year.
How do you spell that?
Copra. It looks like Copra, but apparently it's pronounced Copra.
I'm looking it up right now. That sounded cool, and I love the idea of someone doing a do-it-yourself project to that level.
And that's exactly what it was. It was do-it-yourself comics on a level that I'm not going to say no one's attempted before, but he found such success in it that I adored it. For a while there was a thing called the Copra Compendium, which was the first 3 issues, and I damn near ordered it. Now I finally sat down to order it. They were sold out, and it was going for $100 on eBay. So I was really happy to see that the trade of Copra Round 1 is currently available. I cannot talk it up enough. It's the best independent comic you'll ever read. I absolutely... It lived up to the hype, and believe me, that book had been hyped to the heavens by the 2 or 3 comic sites that I read.
That is, wow, yeah, you were not kidding about the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, you can clearly see Deadshot on the cover.
Yeah, that is...
Yeah, what's funny is it starts out, and it's definitely more of a pastiche. There's a very clear Amanda Waller character, and but there's very little like one-to-one comparisons. But by the time you get to issue 2, there's an Australian who throws things named Harkness, and then in issue 3, when that character shows up, his name's Lloyd. He has a daughter that he's doing this for to make money for to pay child support payments, and he has the wrist-mounted guns. So yeah, it's very much a one-to-one comparison, and that guy is a badass. And the whole story is it's fun, it's crazy, it zigs when you think it's in a zag. It's so great. The closest thing I could compare it to, honestly, is the current Transformers versus G.I. Joe with Tom Scioli.
Oh, nice. Dude, that has been crazy in the best way too.
Exactly, yeah. But they're both books that just celebrate comics and the anything goes nature of comics in a way that a lot of the more mainstream press rightfully probably is afraid to do. I mean, it would be great if Michelle Pfeiffer had been given the actual Suicide Squad and let run rampant on it with his Cobra ideas. But the fact that he did it on his own is even more spectacular.
Yeah, that really is. Like you said, that's something you don't, especially in comics nowadays. I mean, you hear a lot of, because of digital and stuff, you hear a lot of people going digital, but you don't hear a lot of people doing a physical press like that to this level anymore at all.
Yeah, and again, you're absolutely right. If he'd done it in digital, it would have been just as cool and just as neat on a conceptual level. But that dude put comic books together in his house and got into previews and sold it from his house to distribute it. He was his own distributor. That's fucking insane in the coolest fuckest way possible.
That really is. That is, wow, yeah, there's Cobra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 through 17, all first prints for $4,000.
Yeah, because there's I think at least with issue 1 there's only a few hundred copies in existence. It's going to be pretty much impossible to find first issues of, but he's starting to collect them. So worth your time. Anybody who's listening, Cobra is worth your time and finally available to those of us who live in areas that don't carry such unique product.
Yeah, that is freaking insane and awesome. Yeah, definitely. I like the cover too. Just at the very, like you said, I guess the only thing you can compare it to fairly would be the original, older like '80s independent comics, where it does have like almost that European look of like someone making it in their house to put out. That's so awesome.
Yeah. He also, and I wish I had the trade with me, I left it in Leveland, but he reprints a back matter page from issue 2 in the trade where he talks about Walter Simonson and the Kirby effect. And basically the idea is you can absolutely do create your entire own comic in a month. It's just you get that Jack Kirby mentality about it, If a line is there, a line's there. Don't erase it, just use it. Don't even think about rewriting. This is the story you made, just do it. And it's this clear love of the medium just shines through in his talking about these two creators and their bodies of work and how he's using their inspiration to power his own work.
God, that is crazy and awesome. Yeah, I'd never heard of that.
Blown your mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, that's someone who did a similar process with my band's album this year. I love anyone to do that stuff, and it's like I said, that's one reason I've always respected the heck out of books like the original Crow or like the original TMNT and stuff like that. Where even just the idea of them, I love how they went about it. Today, and especially in comics today, with Marvel and DC, people look at that as these unbreakable fortresses that you can never make your own to get in. And even though we have stuff like Image and Monkey Brain and Vertigo and some smaller ones and Dark Horse and stuff, it's still this level where a lot of people look at it like this elite group, but see people just go and say, "Nah, screw it, I'll make it in my basement and ship it out."
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's currently an idol of mine. I've got Derek and I have one issue of our comic out, and I'm currently revising the script for issue 2. Hopefully we'll have issue 2 out by May. Yeah. And this is a guy who did all 12 issues in a year, and apparently he's up to issue 17. I had no idea he'd actually produced more material since that. Yeah. But he's a fucking workhorse. That dude is awesome. No, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing.
Someone who, like I said, have scripts for like 3 issues and is trying my best to get my best friend to draw him. And it keeps going back and forth, so who knows? But anyway, yeah, someone, I get that workhorse mentality, but comics especially, it's just, there's so much, like you said, there's so much of a level to do that. And like me talking about Capullo and Snyder earlier, I respect the heck out of anyone that can keep that kind of schedule constantly.
Right.
Especially one like that where it's so self-imposed, where you don't have a editor coming in and saying, okay, if you want this, you have to get this in by this time, or else you will dock your pay or something. It's like you have no pay, no anything to get out of it. You're just doing it straight for the love of, I'm going to finish this.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well, man, we need to talk about at least a little bit, because this year there has been a lot of superhero movies, but specific, and we talked about earlier, they've pretty much all been at least fun to some degree.
Yes, I actually, on that note, I haven't actually said this to you yet. This is a podcast surprise for you.
Oh, no.
I kind of loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Wow.
I watched it, and I am surprised at how much I dug it. It's not a good movie.
No.
It's kind of like what we were talking about with Sin City. It is inarguably a bad movie. It is a poorly made movie, but I had so much fun watching it, and they nailed the characters so well.
That is what I've
despite
heard.
That,
I've heard that the movie's not great. It's not, but the Turtles themselves, they got the characters down.
yes,
And anytime they're on screen, it is really fun and really exciting. They just need to actually focus on the stars of the movie.
yeah, I'm totally down with that. I will say my bar was set so low by all the negative reviews of Turtles that when the opening scene started and Megan Fox started talking and shit didn't actively start just falling out of her mouth when she talked, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she actually, she tried. She acted in that movie. She's a bad actress in that movie, but unlike Transformers, she actually tried to act. And Will Arnett is clearly having a good time and bringing his charm and presence to the screen. And I like William Fichtner as a bad guy. And all the Turtles are, the Turtles. They nailed the personalities of those characters. So it's a bad movie. It is a terrible movie, but I really loved watching it. I had a really good time watching it.
Well, and a horrible segue. There were a lot of fun bad movies, but there are also 3 of not only the best superhero films released, but 3 just films that are honestly on my favorite list now with Guardians of the Galaxy, Days of the Future Past, and Winter Soldier.
Yep.
All came out this year. Each one of those, like I said, not only an amazing superhero film, an amazing film.
Just an amazing film, yeah. I think at this point it's fair to drop the superhero caveat on films like that.
Yeah.
Because Captain America was a 70s spy thriller.
Exactly.
It just happened to have a superhero.
It was exactly. It was based in a lot of ways. It was an American James Bond,
right,
that happened to wear spandex.
Exactly. Guardians of the Galaxy is the best sci-fi movie that we've seen since what? Fucking Serenity. You know? X-Men was another in the dystopian time travel thrillers that are kind of starting to populate the theaters. Just because these have characters with superpowers in them, they doesn't make them. Superhero isn't a genre.
No.
It's something that is in your film, and if you try to make a film that is just superhero, you're going to fall short, which is why I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do as well, because it had very little plot beyond, he's a superhero, these are the supervillains.
Really quick, speaking of that, I don't know if you've kept with all the leaks and stuff about Spider-Man since the whole Sony stuff.
Kinda. I mean, there's so much back and forth, I'm not even sure what's real anymore.
I will say, right now, because there were emails that were leaked that Marvel was talking to Sony about get Spider-Man, and
right.
Marvel's big issue was why Sony said no. Marvel didn't want Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man,
which is the stupidest shit. Andrew Garfield was not the problem with those movies.
He's not, but I think why they're wanting to get rid of him. All the rumors they want to do an Ultimate Spider-Man. They want a Miles Morales.
Okay.
And because
I didn't realize that.
They want somebody. They basically want to do Spider-Man, but they don't want to do an origin story, and they don't want to have to focus on a love interest. And they want Peter Parker to exist, but they want Miles Morales, so it's someone where they don't have the burden of all the past films on them.
Right. Okay. I actually didn't know that, and that is actually kind of amazing, just because it means that there's a chance in hell that Donald Glover will play Spider-Man,
I was about to
which
say
would be the best fucking thing ever.
The biggest rumor right now is because of Sony's current situation, even with the interview being released, and I actually did see that. Not bad. Anyway, that's not comic related at all, so I won't. That's another conversation, another podcast.
Right.
However, because of their financial situation right now, it looks like they're in talks with Marvel again, but much more serious this time around, to the point of Marvel saying that it's too late for him to make it into Civil War, but Infinity War is a very big possibility right now. And Donald Glover is, of course, the #1 rumored actor for all of it.
Oh, Jesus, I hope so. That would be... I can't tell you
That's
how
at least,
fucking excited that would be.
On the Ultimate side, that is what I've heard. and knowing that he, not too long ago voiced Ultimate Spider-Man in a whatever show.
Yeah, the Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah, and has expressed so much interest and so much fans want him. And if they do go the Ultimate route, for one, knowing how much of their current universe is very Ultimate-esque, I could see that working. And I do like the idea of having Spider-Man, but not having to deal with all the romantic issues of Peter Parker.
Right.
Especially if he's going to be just kind of how they're explaining it's kind of treated almost like the Hulk was treated in Avengers, which I'm completely fine with if he's like the breakout character in a smaller role.
Right, exactly. And I think everybody would be totally down for that. And the only people who would not be down with Donald Glover being Spider-Man are people I don't want to know anyway.
Yeah. Well, that was like this is kind of comic booky, but that was like all the recent stuff of Rush Limbaugh and those people going crazy that Idris Elba's rumored to or wanted to play Bond, and there's rumor that the producer they're considering him, and then everyone's like, oh, but Bond's white, and all the people coming out going, hey, he's not real.
Yeah.
Not only is he not real, he's explained very vague in everything he's in.
Right.
One thing that's very loosely comic related, but it's related to that situation. But yeah, like you said, all those movies, they all only like there weren't. This year had a lot of superhero films, but there was just a lot of quality ones that shocked me. Like you said,
even the ones that weren't quality, we had such a joy watching. I mean, there's pleasure to be taken from a bad film.
There is.
And if it's not just a soulless, joyless, massive shit smeared across the screen like Transformers: Age of Extinction, then there's something to be had there, and I think there's something to be had from Sin City: A Dame to Kill For or the new Ninja Turtle film. There's fun, there's joy in those.
There are, and there's fun, there's joy, and you don't have to go in there with this levity. The one thing that Marvel has going against them and going for them is because Marvel, everything connects, everything is important. The fun with some of those films is that nothing, it may not be important. It's just a fun film.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. A Dame to Kill For won't ruin the setup for this massive crossover, possibly.
Exactly, yeah. It's just it's a one-off, Frank Miller ego jerk that was a pleasure to watch, honestly.
Yes.
Don't know if I'll watch it again, but I had a great time watching it. Yeah. The other thing that I've got to say, kind of going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, of things that are finally fucking released with their creator's blessing, I cannot tell you how fucking thrilled I still am right now looking at the Batman 66 television Blu-ray box set sitting on my shelf.
Man, I like that we went from the interview to that pretty quickly, too. This is a year of stuff saying it's not going to happen, then it happens.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly that. Miracle Man, Flex Mentallo, The Interview, Batman 66 Blu-rays. This has been the year where shit finally, for whatever reason, shit came together that needed to come together.
And you're missing one too that was. It was already out, but they made it so much easier, which the Hellblazer mass volumes of each thing.
Yes, that's true. They finally started putting out fucking Hellblazer collections.
That may have started last year, but I know this year they're officially, I believe, all out.
That is so cool because I have a short box packed to the gills of Hellblazer back issues because that for the most part was really the only way to get Hellblazer for the longest time unless you wanted the Garth Ennis run, and then that was spotty because they'd only keep certain ones in print at certain times.
Yeah, and, I mean even the up until the recent ones were very hard to find.
Yeah,
like I don't know, I will never understand about Hellblazer or Vertigo's release schedule for their graphic novels. Is with the exception of Fables and Sandman. A lot of Vertigo stuff is just really, really hard to find. Even Swamp Thing is not heavily produced in a lot of markets for some reason.
Yeah, Preacher has managed to break that into that barrier as well, but Transmetropolitan has had like maybe 2 trade releases, maybe 3.
Yeah,
and that's really a damn shame.
If you go to any bookstore, what you will most likely see Vertigo is pretty much Sandman and Fables.
Right,
and like I said, Preacher is in a lot too.
Yeah, Preacher has reached that level, but that took a pretty concerted fan effort for that to happen.
But now, Hellblazer.
I was really happy to see the Doom Patrol and Animal Man omnibuses this year.
Yes, those two. That's correct.
Invisibles was, I want to say 2013, but
2013 or maybe even 2012. Like
Vertigo omnibuses.
that honestly, that I think that was 2012. I think we were both working at Hastings when that came out.
Oh yeah, you're right. Shit.
Yeah.
Well, I know for at least Doom Patrol came out.
Yes, I
Which
do
was
know.
amazing.
There was a few others, but yeah, time flies. Well, we're getting kind of close here. Well, we can talk. We talked so much about the TV shows. I think we both agree. I mean, Flash was probably the standout of the year.
Flash was the standout of the year, but Arrow's mid-season finale was the episode of the year.
Arrow, Constantine has still been. I still love what's going on there. Have you caught up at all with Constantine?
No, I only watched the first 2 episodes, but my friend Kenny actually was talking about how much he was adoring the new Constantine show. So it's reaching out to lapsed fans as well, which bravo for it.
You should.
I'm super excited for
Definitely at least check out the Gary Lester episode because it's straight from Original Sins, I believe.
Okay.
And it's really, really good, I thought. But those were great. Gotham sucked. There was. I'm just trying to go.
Gotham. People keep telling me that it has its moments, but I don't care.
I don't like that. Anytime people are like, "Oh, it's getting there," I will start watching it when it is there.
Right, exactly. Which is why I kind of want to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 2 because apparently it got there at season 2. So I'll wait for that.
Yeah. So for 2015 coming up, what are you looking forward to? At least comics wise, because we have the obvious Avengers: Age of Ultron is coming out.
Right.
Because I know me personally, of course, I'm looking very, very, very forward to. Hopefully, Jardway will launch a series next year.
Right.
CM Punk has some work coming out next year.
Yeah.
I do have to make a shout out to Max Bemis. I haven't talked about a lot. Evil Empire has been coming out all this year, and I just haven't been around places that have them. Every issue I've got to read has been awesome, and he's one of my favorite writers and artists. I just need to find a place that has all of them.
We have a few at my Hastings, dude. I'll take a look because I didn't know that was any good. I'll see what we got, and I'll try to give it a read.
It's definitely my kind of story. Again, my kind of writer, but Evil Empire is just weird and cool.
I have another shocking podcast revelation for you as far as what I'm looking forward to in 2015.
What?
I've actually made the decision. I am going to try to pull back and probably buy 2 to 4 Marvel books a month as opposed to the Marvel I'm currently buying. I'm going to stop buying as many superhero books. I'm going to try to walk away from superheroes in total. I'm not going to stop buying Ms. Marvel. I'll probably keep buying Uncanny X-Men, and I'll definitely be buying Chip Zdarsky's Howard the Duck, which is one of the ones I'm most looking forward to in 2015. But my goal for 2015 is what I'm most looking forward to is the book I don't know exists yet.
True.
There's going to be a book, a Copra-esque book out there sometime in 2015 that I'm going to find and adore, and I don't know what that book is going to be yet, and I don't know who's going to put it out. But my goal is to find that book. Find the book that inspires me as much as Copra did, and the creators who are toiling in their basements and trying to put something new and special together. That is what I'm looking forward to in 2015.
Well, that's very nice. That is true. That is hard to dispute. Well, that is the beauty, of course, too, of comics, and like we just said, of any industry like that, where there's so much talent that is just waiting to have their opportunity or just the right place, the right time, that every year there is something to come out. I mean, in the past few, we've had several, like we just talked about, from Southern Bastards to Saga to Rat Queens to Copra to every Punk Rock Jesus to everything in between, where it's
and the one I forgot, Ragnarok.
Yes,
Walt Simonson writing and drawing a story about dead Thor. Love it to fucking death.
You know what? I'm very interested in seeing what Morrison does next year, because we don't, to my knowledge, the Wonder Woman thing may come out next year, but we don't know a lot of
Nameless. His horror book is coming out next year.
He keeps saying that. There's been that's like what was his other thing? Crap, I can't remember. I love Morrison to death, but he on certain things he can kind of be like Guillermo del Toro, where he has so many projects that he is working on, but they're so far from release, and he lets little hints slip that, like Multiversity and stuff like that, that we may not, some of the stuff he talks about, we may not see for another 10 to 15 years.
Right.
Which is kind of cool, because when we finally see it, it's like, oh shit, he wasn't lying.
Yeah, this is exactly as good as he was saying it was, asshole.
Yeah, well, like, I was bagging and boarding Comics Day and looking through Multiversity, and once again, it can't be said enough how solid that series has been each issue.
Yes. And he cemented my fanboy crush. I've long suspected that I had a fanboy crush on Mary Marvel, and that is officially, as of Thunderworld, that's the case.
And
I mean,
Thunderworld,
I loved her back on I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League. Everything he did with her in Final Crisis was wonderful. But yeah, he's primarily the cause. But
yeah.
I have a fanboy crush on Mary Marvel.
And I guess
that dude is amazing.
Thunderworld, this is like the funnest perfect Shazam story.
Yes.
That we haven't had since God knows when.
Probably Jeff Smith's Monster Society of Evil miniseries, which was probably about 10 years ago at this point.
But yeah, that whole story, you could tell it was so fun because you could just tell it was a character Morrison had wanted to write and hadn't had a big opportunity to handle.
Exactly.
And just had fun with him. So much fun with him, that entire thing. It was just so, and oh crap, I can't remember the artist on it. God, I'm gonna hate it.
Chris Weston?
Yeah, maybe.
Hold on, I think I got him nearby, and I don't have to take off my headphones. Maybe. Hold on.
Okay.
Gotta look through the many piles of comics. So many piles of comics. My wife hates these piles of comics. Speaking of Hellblazer, there's a bunch of back issues.
Oh, there you go.
Shit balls. That's not the right pile of comics.
No, well,
I can't remember the artist. And I can't find my copy. I apologize.
Multiversity it's one of the few, if not the only series I can think of that I know it's very purposely done in Multiversity, but the only series I can think of where every issue has a completely different artist, and so far it has been awesome, more and more awesome because of it, because they each fit to a T.
Yes.
Oh crap, we didn't even talk about. As far as artists go this year, we had so many. Gabriel Barr and Frank Quitely both had work this year. Jardway and Morrison had this stuff this year. This has been a good year for me personally as far as that stuff goes.
I think it's been a good year for creators in general.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody was really just working their balls off. Any creator of note was really putting out, some of the best work of their career. Yeah. Matt Fraction on Sex Criminals, Bendis on the X titles and Guardians of the Galaxy, Hickman both with East of West and continuing Manhattan projects, and his work on the Avengers. Literally, I can't think of a person. And then creators that we didn't expect anything from really bringing it, like Ray Fox, Tim Seeley.
Oh yeah.
This has really been a year where
Gail Simone and Becky Cloonan were both awesome this year.
Yes, exactly. People we haven't heard from in ages, really just turning out some of the best work that they've put out in years.
We've had Morrison, Starlin, and Gaiman all put out new issues.
Right.
Not just
genuinely new content.
Yeah, and on top, that alone, I mean, that's a blast from 80s and 90s past.
Right.
I think Frank Miller I was going to say that, but then again, we did have a Dame to Kill for, so in a way, Frank Miller did have work, too. Did Moore have anything this year? He probably did.
He did the Cross 100, and he had a backup strip in one of the Hickman God is Dead stories that was apparently fantastic. All the diehard Alan Moore fans I know were like, that God is Dead story he did was just fucking brilliant and fantastic, and his Cross issue was fine, but that was one that at least two people I know who are pretty diehard Moore fans were like, this is some of the best work he's done in years.
I'm just looking at my bookshelf. I'm thinking, who's the writer that is still around that didn't have something this year? You pointed out that's solid. Like, Jeff Johns kind of had a kind of went down, not down in quality, but went from being the main guy to kind of going a little bit behind.
Well, yeah, but then again, he's also doing Superman with John Romita Jr. And for the first time since the New 52 relaunched, Superman not being written by Grant Morrison is fun and readable.
Yeah, I said that when it came out. I was like, well, he's still pretty in the spotlight. But
I agree. I think Scott Snyder has kind of replaced him as DC's biggest writer, but John still has a horse in that race.
Yeah, he's instead of being directly in the spotlight, he's just kind of sideways.
Right. He's not trotted quite off stage yet.
Jamie Delano didn't release anything this year, neither did Jeff Loeb that I know of. That's what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, you're on the B team, dude.
Yeah. Hey, B team was A team. There we go. Well, you know what? I think...
on that pun of walking off stage,
yes.
I think It is time for us to leave the podcast stage.
Yes, it is. Till 2015.
Yes, Happy New Year, everyone. We will see you in 2015. Colby, another milestone. We started this podcast this year.
We actually, I think we started at 2013, in fairness.
Well, we discussed it in 2013. I don't know if we actually started recording until maybe we started late last year.
Yeah, I don't know, 2012, 2013. But either way, this was the first year where we had a semi-consistent schedule.
Right. We've actually put out some pretty consistent podcasting, grown as podcasters. I think 2014 has been a great year for both of us. Yeah. So congratulations and thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you as well, and I look forward to the podcast in 2015.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
No one else